Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you are all well, safe, keeping busy during these crazy hard times. We are here on our second week for our Bluebeam presentation. This is the second presentation of our July webinar series, and today's topic is markups and quantity takeoff. Before we jump into the presentation, some logistics. All lines, as usual, are going to be muted so that the presenter can speak clearly and we can hear. You can send us all the questions via the chat box or question box, and we will be answering along the way or at the end. This webcast is recorded for future viewing. If you want to take notes, you know that you can actually pay attention and you don't need to take notes. You can see it again. And Bluebeam review training is available, guys. So if you need any training, this is the time now that we have all this pandemic thing. Maybe you have a little time to get trained. We have different packages available, so contact us for information. And without any more delays, it is my pleasure to present our AEC Technical Specialist and Bluebeam Certified Instructor, Ari Redman. Ari, take it away.
Thank you, Raquel. Hi, everybody. My name is Ari, and today we're going to be going over markups in the markups list. We'll also especially look at quantity takeoffs, sharing our markups, and the tool chest. So let's look at our little outline for today. We're going to be, of course, making markups. We'll go into the tool chest and drawing mode versus properties mode. Really powerful ways to use our tools and different kinds of ways that we can use our tools. We'll also look at how to export and import different tools. We can also get tools from Bluebeam's website. So I'll show you where I got a ton of tools for different disciplines. So any discipline you can think of, there's a tool for it. We'll also look at the markups list and learn how we can make a quantity take. We'll look at a little bit of cost analysis, and we'll see how we can calculate some quantities and some area calculations, wall area calculations, etc. We'll also look at hyperlink summary reports. And at the end, we'll learn two different ways that we can flatten our markups and what it means to flatten markups. So without further ado, let me turn my camera off and let me show you guys my screen. All right, so I have Bluebeam Review open, and to access our markups from the first time, we can go to the tools dropdown and markup, and we have all of our markups in a list. Each markup also has a keybind shortcut next to it. So I could press the T key while I'm on my drawing space. I can literally just press T, and now I'm ready to make a brand new text box with new data. So keybinds could be nice. They can expedite your process. So if you want to learn what keybinds are assigned to what, there's a couple different ways. You can go back to the tools dropdown and markup, and you can memorize all of these keybinds and start to use them on a day-to-day basis. Or like I showed you guys, like I showed you guys in the last webinar last week, we can go to our review dropdown and keyboard shortcuts, and we can not only look at all the keybinds here, we can start to change them. So if we don't like the way certain keybinds are, then we can change them to keys that are more comfortable for us. So that's quite fun. Anyway, we're going to be looking at markups first. I'll just show you guys the basic markups and how they work. And then we're going to go into the tool chest, and I'll show you guys how they work as well. So to start off with, we have very simple but very powerful markup. So we can access them right here, tools and markup and text box. And before we make a text box, I want to remind you guys about a setting that I've shown you guys in the previous webinar. When we go to our review dropdown and we click on preferences, then under tools and markup, we can make sure that auto size text box and callout markups is checked on and reuse tools is checked on. This will allow us to automatically make a new markup after doing one. So the reuse tools one is quite useful. And the escape key is then used more often to cancel out of markups. And auto size text box and callout markups is great too. Let me demonstrate how it works right now. So I'm going to go back to the tools dropdown, markup, make a text box. Let's make a brand new one. We'll make it right around here. I'm going to make a very large box for it, but I'm only going to type a little data. And when I press the escape key, that big box just fit around my text perfectly. So this is why we set that setting up, so that now we don't have to worry about manually resizing our box by eyeballing it. That's not going to be done anymore. Now, if we make our text box big while working, or if this is an accidental thing that we do, there's also a manual way to resize our text box, and that's this button right here, Auto Size Text Box. You'll notice that this button only appears when a markup is selected. So I'm going to deselect this markup, and now this entire toolbar is changed back to the generic one whenever you have a file open. If I select a markup, now I have access to a lot of different properties that allow me to change the markup. Not every single property is here, but most of them are. So now I'm going to auto size the text box, and there we go. Now I have allowed my text to fit the text box, or allowed the box to fit the text. Now let's say that the opposite situation happens. What if you have a text box that's perfectly sized, but you want your text to fit it? So there's actually a really cool button called Auto Size Text instead of Auto Size Text Box. Here it is right here. And so when I click on it, my text changes its font. Now its font is actually automatic. You can see that the number here is changed to 57 with a certain decimal. And the text, it basically can't really be changed manually. And as I make the box bigger, you can see that this is actually a toggle. So I toggled the setting on, and as I make my box bigger, my text resizes itself. Once I turn this off, I can keep the same font that I want to, and then I can change it manually if I want. So I can change it to 72, for example, which is a little bit more reasonable. And then I can auto size the text box, and there we go. So there's many different ways that we can allow our text to fit itself in the text box. Let's look at some properties for this text box. We can access them by going to the gear wheel on the upper right side right here. So the properties will tell us a lot of information about our text box, and this information is very important, especially for quantity takeoffs. So we have our author and our subject. By default, this text box subject is just simply text box. This is how it is for most text boxes, but it's very important to set your subject to a certain discipline or to a certain category so that it can be categorized in our markups list. We'll go into that a little bit later. Just keep that in mind as we continue. Then we can change the appearance of our text. The color is not actually the text color. The text color is all the way down here. This color, if we change it, has to do with the border color. So now the line around the text has been changed. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's increase the line width. And now we have a really nice orange text box around our red text. And we can then change our text from red to blue. And there we go. And our fill color is quite interesting. We can have a fill in the back of our text. So let's choose a nice dark green. Now this can be a little bit too bright, so we need to change its opacity just a little bit. We have the opacity for the text itself and the fill opacity. Let's change the fill opacity to, let's say, a nice 40%. That looks very nice, and we can see past it now. And the text itself, we can always change as well, but I like to have my text stand out a bit more, so I'm going to set it back to 100%. Then we can change the shape around the text. So instead of a rectangle, we could have a circle, or we could have a triangle, for example. This triangle actually becomes quite handy when we make callouts with the Cloud Plus tool, and if we wanted to make revision clouds. As you can see, I actually have one right here, and I've set it so that the triangle fits perfectly around my number one revision right here. So let's right click and let us delete this one. And let's go back to that. Let me undo that. Let me show you a few more settings for the text box. So then we can change our style. So instead of having solid lines, we can change it to dashed lines. So now it could be something completely different, just like that Monty Python movie, right, guys? And now for something completely different. Speaking of which, let's look at our line spacing. We can increase that so that the text in between other text has more of a space in between. So that could be quite useful if you want to. We can also change our alignment, of course, so text can be centered. It can be set to the right alignment. There's also different kinds of alignments, whether you align in the middle. Let me actually make my properties bigger so I can show you guys. And we can also align ourselves to the bottom of wherever we have our text, and so on and so forth. We can even see different font styles that are very similar to font styles in programs like Microsoft Word. Then below all of these regular settings, we have custom settings. These are really, really important for quantity takeoffs. I've already set up 4 different custom settings for responsibility, so I can easily set the responsibility of this text. I can't do it right now because my subject isn't set accordingly. So once I get there, I'll show you guys how this works with responsibility. The cost analysis is ready to be calculated. A material is ready to be set. I also have to change the subject of this markup in order for the material to work. So I'll show you guys that soon. And at the end, we have some layout options where we can actually change the rotation quite easily of this markup if we needed to. So with a few clicks, I can rotate in increments of 15 degrees. That's quite nice. Anyway, so this is an example of a text box. So let's get rid of that. It's a little bit big and intrusive. And let's go back and look at some more markups. We'll go to our tools dropdown and markup. And below the text box, we have the typewriter. It's very similar to a text box. It just has less properties and less things to deal with. So you can type data and then press enter and type more data. really quickly. And there's no text box involved. Now, if you wanted to, you can actually make a text box around it. So if I change the color from black to another color, for example, I've now turned my typewriter into a text box, so to speak. But in properties, it still says typewriter properties. So if you want more settings, then you might want to use the text box. But you can still turn a typewriter into a text box, so to speak. And then, of course, you can change the text color. I can change that to blue, very simple. Everything here is very similar, where we can change the shape, the font size, etc. So nothing crazy here that we're looking at. Now, let's look at another markup, the note. The note is very, very cool. We can place this small little icon, put tons of data into it, and we can just move all of that around with just a click. The note doesn't take up a lot of space on our page, so if we have shop drawings or a lot of information about a specific markup, we can type all that info into a note or copy it into a note as well. I can just double click on my note and I can look at my info, and there we go. I can actually move this a little bit to the right, and you can see how it's continuously moving with the note and connected to the note with this line right here. Quite cool. Let me change the color so you can see it better. There we go. That looks a lot easier to see. So yeah, notes are quite powerful. You can put essays, paragraphs, anything you want inside of them. Next, let's look at the callout markup. The callout one is quite nice. First, we start off with our arrow, and then we move our callout out, and you can adjust how the shoulder reacts to it based on its position. So right now the shoulder is below the callout. If I move it towards the center area, when I move it to about a 45-degree angle, it now moves to the right, and I can make, I'm just going to click again, type my data, and when I'm done, press escape, and there it is. My simple callout is ready to go. I can adjust the shoulder if I want to. So if the shoulder is too small or too big, I can make it bigger or smaller by holding onto the grip, clicking and holding with my left mouse button, and just moving it like that. And when you look in properties, you can see a lot of similar properties from the callout to the text box and the typewriter. We can change our color, our fill color, our text color. Everything here is very, very similar. The only difference is that we can also change how the arrow looks. So instead of having a border, we can actually change the color of the arrow itself. So I'm going to change this one to green. There it is, a nice green arrow. So the arrow and the text are independent from one another. So the color always has to do with either a border or an object, and the text color, of course, is for the text. So now I can change my text independently from the arrow itself. And yeah, callouts can be quite powerful. What's really nice is when you combine a callout with a cloud, and we're going to get into that one pretty soon. So let's go back to our tools and markup. And Review has access to the pen and highlight tools. How does the eraser tool work? Because at first it seems like it doesn't really work on anything, but it sure does. What happens is when you use a pen tool, and then I'm also going to put a highlight out there as well, this eraser tool in particular only works for these two tools. That's why it's actually categorized in its own little split category. There's actually little divider lines here and here. And so that means that the eraser tool works for these tools. So how it works is I can just basically hold my mouse and I can erase an entire object like that. So instead of erasing parts of an object, I would just choose to erase an entire one with this eraser tool. And that's it. So you can use that one to easily get rid of things if you need to. Just a quick way of doing so. You can actually change how that works by looking at the eraser tool, and you can see that there's actually different eraser options. Let me get out of it and show it to you. So if I click on eraser, you'll see what happens in this line right here. So markup, eraser. Now I can change it from this stroke eraser to a large, medium, or small one. So now when I change it to the large one, I can erase part of the markup just like this. So you can change your eraser so that you can modify certain markups. And then what happens is the markup is still one markup, even though it seems like I've split it in half. But your markups can maintain themselves even if you modify them with that eraser tool. So it can be quite useful. So let's look at the annotation eraser. That means that you can actually erase annotations. And it looks like, let's see if this one's going to work here. No, basically it just allows us to continually erase portions of the highlighter and pen tools. So that's basically how the eraser tool works. Let's continue on. Review allows us to make lines and arrows and arcs. The difference between a line and an arrow isn't really too drastic. I'm going to make a line here, and I'll also make an arrow, and I'll show you guys why they're very, very similar to one another. So this arrow, of course, has an arrow pointing in one direction. This line does not have that, and you can even tell just by looking that the thickness of the line by default is a little bit thicker than the arrow's line. So let's continue down and let's look at more options for lines themselves. We can change the style of line just like we could for the border of a text box. We can even change it into all of these very advanced symbols, insulation, different gas and hot water symbols and things. So depending on your discipline, those could be quite useful. And then we can change the start and end of each line. And this is why lines and arrows are so similar to one another, because now I can change my line into an arrow if I wanted to. I can put different kinds of arrows on the end. I'll click on this arrow now, and funnily enough, I can turn this into a line. So quite interesting how they've separated the markups for each one, but they have very, very similar properties. As you can see when I switch between them in the properties area, nothing really changes in terms of the possibilities. So basically lines and arrows are very similar to one another. And they can also be categorized into the responsibility and other custom columns that we'll go into soon. So that can be quite useful. I'm now going to switch to my select tool right here. And that way I can easily grab both of these at the same time, make a little box around them, and I can just delete them like this. I can press the delete key to do that. Let's go back and let's look at arcs really quickly. So arcs are very interesting in review. All you have to do is select your first point. You can make basically a 2-point arc in review. When you're ready, you can make your arc right there. And then of course, the arc, like other markups, can be modified. So now I've selected it and I'm ready to modify it. So if I wanted to make my arc bigger or smaller, I can grab the grip on any of the corners and I can make it larger or smaller. The problem is that right now I'm not uniformly making it larger or smaller, and I'm changing the arc's actual angle right now. Now I don't really want to do that. Instead, I literally want the arc to maintain its curve and get smaller or larger. So I'm going to hold the shift key while I do this. And now the arc is maintaining itself and I can perfectly move it. So I'm just going to make it a little smaller. And there we go. The shift key allows you to basically make a square arc, so to speak. And so that's how arcs work. Bluebeam Review happens to be the only PDF software that makes arcs. How awesome is that? So we can also make polylines and dimension lines. What's nice about these dimensions is you can change the number for the dimension. So these are not really measurements. They're more like markups. Let me turn on my snap to content option right down here so I can access this. By the way, just like I showed you guys in the last tutorial or in the last webinar, if you go down to the tools drop down, and if you go to toolbars, you can turn on your status bar as well. And that way you'll have access to all of these awesome shortcuts, especially the instructional one on the bottom left. Right now it's telling me how to use my dimension markup. So let's make a dimension from here to here. And let's pretend that instead of it being actually 30 feet, you were trying to specify to somebody that this should be only 25 feet. So that could be changed. You could then move this up so it doesn't get in the way. So let me select it and do that. I'm going to hold shift while I move it up. Also, if I wanted to keep its original origin points in place, I could just use the grip and I can move the dimension up and away, but it still maintains its origin right here and here. And there you go. So I can specify any number I want with these dimensions. And I have a lot of control as to how these look. I can change the start arrows, for example, and the line style itself and everything. So nothing crazy going on there. Let's go to the tools drop down and markup again. Polylines work very simply. You can just basically make a line and continue to draw and draw and draw. There's another tool that actually allows us to specify the length of these lines, and that's going to be covered in the next webinar. It's called sketch to scale tools. So in the next webinar, I'll show you guys how these work. They're really, really cool. But you can see a lot of similarities between the polyline sketch to scale and the regular markup polyline. So there's different ways of making polylines in Review. There's also different ways of making shapes. As you saw in sketch to scale, we have polygons, rectangles, and ellipses available to us. We also have them available in our markups list. So rectangle, ellipses, and polygons, they're all here. And they're very simple. You can basically just click and hold and make any shape you want. If you hold the shift key, you can make perfect squares if you need to. So there we go. This is a perfect square because I held shift as I made it. And the shape tools work as you would, as you would think they would. In ellipse, for example, instead of just making a regular ellipse, I can hold shift and now I can make a perfect circle. So pretty simple stuff. Let's go back to our tools and markup, and let's look at clouds and then cloud pluses. Cloud pluses are really cool. So of course, I can make a revision cloud. I can make it in many ways. If I don't hold my left mouse button as I click, so I'm just going to click once and then click again and again and again, I can make a cloud in any shape that I want, and I don't have to manually close it. I can just press the enter key and Review will automatically close my cloud for me. So I can make my cloud in any shape I want. If I want it to be rectangular, then of course, I can just click and hold my left mouse button and I can make a cloud just like that. So That's how you use the regular Cloud tool. Now let's make a Cloud Plus tool. We'll go to Tools and Markup and Cloud Plus. Now I can make the cloud first, so I'm going to make it about a nice little rectangle like that. And then immediately after, without having to click anything, I have the callout available to me. So I can make this callout and I can do anything I want with it. So now I'm going to put it here on the bottom right. I like that position. I'm going to type in the number 1. I could type in any text that I want, but I'm going to show you guys how to make a revision cloud in very, very short time. So I'm going to press Escape. I'm now ready to modify my cloud so that it has a revision and a triangle around the number 1. So in Properties, check this out. We have 2 different kinds of settings for our Cloud Plus tool. We have the cloud itself. You can see the symbol right here. So I can modify the cloud's color, for example. Let's actually make it green. I can modify the fill color if I wanted there to be a nice fill on the inside. Let me make one and show you guys how we can modify it even better. So the fill opacity is a bit too dark right now. So if I set it to about 20 or 10%, we have this nice light blue background that we can still see other objects in. So if I move this on top of objects, we can see right past them. And that's really nice, actually. So that's a pretty good cloud so far. And let's continue going. Obviously, we can change the opacity of the actual lines themselves for the cloud. So if I wanted them to be a little bit faded, I could do that too. I like them to stand out a bit, so I'll put them back to 100. I can change how thick the cloud lines are, so I can make them just a little thicker. I think size 2 is nice. I can change the cloud itself, so it does not have to be a cloud. It could be any of the other different line types that Review has to offer. So we could actually add more line styles by clicking on Manage right here. And you can start to import line types if you'd like to. So there's many different opportunities and ways to modify this and customize it to your liking. Then underneath the cloud properties, we have the callout properties. You can tell because there's a little symbol for the callout right here. So now I can change the color of the arrow for the callout. So let's make that one, we'll make it orange. And let's change the text color itself. We'll make that green as well, just to mimic the cloud itself. Actually, we'll make them both green. There we go. That way it makes a little bit more sense. And the shape. Let's change our shape to that triangle that we were talking about. Let's make sure it's auto size. So this is our auto size text box button right here, just like we did for the text box. So very, very similar. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a Cloud Plus tool with the number 1 in a revision cloud, perfectly done and ready to be used. Now, let's actually take this tool, since we've spent all this time customizing it and we don't want to have to customize it again. Let's put it into our tool chest and let's look at how the tool chest works. So how do we put a tool into the tool chest? All you have to do is right click on top of the object. Now, sometimes when you right click on the inside of an object, nothing will happen. But because we have a fill, then that means that we can. So let's say we didn't have a fill. Now you'll notice that my cursor is changing. So when I put my cursor on top of any of the border of the cloud or the text itself, it changes to the black pointer with the 4 cardinal directions. If I move it to the inside of the cloud, my cursor is back to normal. So if I right click, I'm getting the regular right click menu and not the one for selecting markups. If I select this markup and then right click on top of it, now I have all kinds of options. So even if I select the markup, had I right clicked right here, I would just deselect the markup and get the regular menu. So that's something very, very important to note. I've noticed that when I train people, a lot of people get very confused about this. They try to right click inside the markup, but they don't realize that they have to right click on top of the markup itself. Now, because I added a fill, which I'm going to put back, now the fill itself is part of the markup. And so this is an object too. So when I right click on top of it, I am now right clicking on the cloud itself. So just a little thing to note. So we have lots of options when we right click. We can actually set our markups to layers if we wanted to. So I've actually set most of my markups to a layer called my markups. So I'm actually going to show you guys that really quick. If I go to layers right here, I can turn my markups off, and there they are, they're all gone. All the other markups are turned on, and so I can just toggle between them very easily, just like that. So I'll leave my markups on. Obviously, we have other layers that were created on this sheet too, so I can turn them on and off. You can see that these markups, for example, are part of the 50% design and development layer, and there you go. So let's go back to our cloud. We love our cloud. It's a great cloud. Let's put it into our tool chest. So we just need to right click on top of it, mouse over, add to tool chest, and choose which of our tool sets we want to put it in. As you guys can see, I have quite a lot of tool sets here. So I'm going to put it in AR tools. And there it is. My toolbox opens, and there is my cloud ready to be used. Now, I've saved my cloud here for the first time. By the way, I don't need this on my sheet anymore. I can get rid of it. I already have my cloud in the tool chest and it's there forever. So no matter what document I open, I'll have access to this Cloud Plus tool wherever I go and all of my tools. So I first put it in the tool chest, and if I click on it once and I try to use it, it's an exact carbon copy of the cloud that I just made. Now, that's nice, but I don't want to have to place it somewhere and then have to stretch it out and modify it. There's also no real way to stretch a cloud in a square uniform way. So if you want it to remain square, you're going to have to basically make it perfect from the get-go. Another thing you could do is you can turn on snap to markup. So if I grab this grip here, now I can align myself with any of the other grips that I currently have, but even then, it's trying to align me to existing grips that already are on my sheet. So it's not even really letting me align to this one. It kind of is right here. Boom, that's pretty close to being square, but it keeps trying to snap to the wrong spot. So yeah, a little bit wonky. So let's not do that. Let's actually undo and get our cloud back. So we don't want to modify a cloud after the fact. We want to make it perfectly from the get-go. So how do we do this? All we have to do is go to our markup in the toolbox and just double click on it once. Now that we've double clicked on it, you can see that the icon for it is a lot different. It's very generic. It shows the Cloud Plus symbol here at the top, and it shows basically the colors of our cloud, but the shape itself is not there. So if I double click on it again, this is exactly the way the cloud was saved in the tool chest right here. But if I double click on it and put it into properties mode, which is what this is called, now I can make a new cloud with different data, but it's maintaining all of the same properties. It still has the revision triangle around the text, the light blue fill color at 10% opacity is still there. So it retained all of its properties, but this allows me to make a brand new cloud. And this cloud can be used a little bit differently. There we go. Now I've made another revision cloud by keeping the number 1 in there. And so this is how we can use our markups in our tool chest. To access our tool chest, we just click on the little lunchbox icon right here, and we have all of these different tools. And I'm going to show you what happens when I double click on all of my tools that I've saved here. Each one is now reverting back into what's called drawing mode. I like to call it carbon copy mode, because now these are actual copies of the markups that I had placed in the tool chest when I first got them. Now they look exactly the way they did when I saved them. But most of the time, I don't want to put a text box template onto my drawing. Instead, I want to make a brand new text box with similar properties. Whoops, what happened there? I was trying to make some kind of an image thing. Let's try that again. Oh yes, because I didn't finish my text box. See guys, sometimes I make mistakes too. And now I can make it with different data, but basically it still has that same blue color, the same background. Everything is basically the same font size. So this is a great way to use your markups in properties mode. And once in a while, you also use your markups in drawing mode, carbon copy mode. I'm going to double click on these guys again because I don't want them to be in drawing mode. I'd rather that most of my markups be in properties mode because that's usually how I use them. There we go. I can actually leave one of these in carbon copy mode so I can distinguish between them. I actually saved my polyline sketch to scale tools right here. Now we're going to go into measurements in the next webinar next week, but just so you guys can see, our measurements are right here. And you can basically put measurements and markups in the same tool chest together. Measurements and markups are very similar to one another. So this is how the tool chest basically works. Let's say that I wanted to save my tools. I can always click on the gear wheel right here, and I can export them first. And then if I've already exported them, I can save them. And wherever I exported them, they will automatically update. Now the save button is not available because I haven't made any changes to my tool chest anymore. If we click on the export button, it simply asks us to place this Bluebeam toolset extension file somewhere in our PC. I recommend putting it somewhere locally. Also, you can put backups on your USB drives, send them to yourselves in an email. They're really small files. Even if you have like 10 or more markups, they're not that big. So you can probably fit all of them into an email. Then let's look at the tool chest dropdown, and we can see that we have all of these different tools here. And let's click on Manage Tool Sets. Here, we can start to look at the different tools that are turned on and off. If I wanted to, I can turn some tools off. So there, my tools are now gone. I'm going to put them back. And the actual My Tools tool set, I've moved it all the way down here. I did that by selecting it and using these arrows so I can move it down and up with these arrow keys. Some tool sets I can't delete, so this one is an exception. I cannot delete it. but I can delete all my other tool sets by clicking on them and clicking on this X right here. And as you can see, I have a lot of tools. Now, before we get into the tools themselves, just so you guys know, you can click on the import button right here, and this is where you can import tools. So if you ever find tools online, you can import them here. You can also double click on your tools that you find online, and they'll automatically be imported into Review. And here's where you can export as well. If you want to add a blank new tool chest set, you can click on Add. You can give it a name. I recommend that you also show it in all profiles. So what does that mean? When we switch between our profiles, our tools are not necessarily there by default. So actually, I'm using the GDS CAD profile. That's quite interesting. Let me switch to my profile. There we go. And let's see if my tools are still there. Yes, that's because this tool set is shown in all profiles automatically. So I don't have to worry about which profile I'm using, even though I switched between the GDS CAD one to my personal profile. Okay, great. So let's go back to our tool chest, manage tool sets. And if you need to rename some tools, you can click on them and click on modify. You can rename them here, and you can see the tools in the tool chest, and you can export individual tools if you need to. You can modify some settings for the tools. So the comments and the subject, for example, can be changed. That can be quite useful. So let's look at some of the tools that I found online. I actually went to, I'll show you guys the website now, the Review extensions portion of their site. So support.bluebeam.com/review-extensions. So here I can click on tool sets, stamps, profiles, even dictionaries if I needed to. Under tool sets, we have so many different disciplines, mechanical and plumbing. We've got even oil and gas, architecture, estimation, construction, office work. The office one I like a lot because the proofreading tools are really nice. If you're proofreading someone's work and you don't want to actually change their work, proofreading can be quite powerful. So let me show you the tools themselves. So I put them all into Bluebeam Review. I have them all backed up on my PC and they're all saved there. So here's the basic stamps one. I put in proofreading. I've got my design symbols and door symbols, windows and electrical tools. I've got so many different kinds of electrical tools, plumbing, etc., etc. I can continue on and on and on. Let me show you guys my favorites. The landscaping ones are really cool. And I've even got fire life and safety, security and CCTV, and people themselves. So I can actually place people onto my drawing in different scenarios, whether it's an elevation or plan, doesn't really matter. And I have my estimation tools at the end. These tools are specifically created for specific materials, and they're very similar to the estimation tools in the markup list columns that I created. Let me show you guys them right now, because that is the tool chest in a nutshell. Before we continue, let me switch back to the PowerPoint, make sure that we're on track. Yep, we've gone through everything that I wanted to. So let's look at the markups list and let's go into quantity takeoffs. So we can access our markups list in a couple of ways. We have a divider line in between the markups list itself and the status bar or Windows itself if you don't have your status bar turned on. You can also click on the 3 dots and the 3 lines right here in the bottom left of my screen. So I'm going to click on that. And now my markups list is open and ready to be used. So the markups list automatically will take a markup that you create and place it on the list. And let's say that you're trying to locate a markup either on the list or on your drawing. If you know where it is in one place, then you can find it on the other. So if I select this markup on the list, it automatically highlights it in the list and navigates to it. I'm now in the middle of my list instead of at the top. And now I can navigate to it. Now let's say I wanted to compare this markup to this steel markup here. Let me actually zoom away from, because I know where it is. But if I click on it, now it automatically selects the markup and zooms you to it and navigates you right there. So the markups list can be used to find markups. And if you need to find a markup on the list, you can, and you have it in front of you on your screen, you can just select it and the list will automatically navigate to it. So here's my polyline sketch to scale. Here's my Cloud Plus one under the subject of admin. That's why it's in a different spot, and so on and so forth. And so that's how you use the markups list from the get-go. Then we can decide what columns are valuable to us in the list. So not all columns are necessary, but most of them are pretty darn cool. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to my markups list dropdown in columns. I don't need the space column, so I'm going to look for it, and I'm going to turn that one off. There we go. And now I want to make these a little bit bigger because I want to show off these cool columns that I made. This is my cost analysis floor area column. We have one for materials, and we have cost analysis wall area as well. So I'm going to be showing you guys how those columns work very soon. Before we do that, let me go to the columns list, and then we'll click on Manage Columns. And now we can see all of our columns and we can reorder them. So if we want the layer to be close to subject, then we can move it there. So I can click on Layer. Let's actually find Layer, see if I can find it. There it is. And now I can just move it up. And now I can move it to the top of the list and make sure that it's in the position that I want it to be. And there we go. Now Layer is next to subject after I clicked OK. Now, just so you know, if you need to import or export markups, you can go to the markups list dropdown, mouse over markups, and you can export all of your markups. Basically, they'll export into a file that you can then import into another file, and they'll all just paste themselves on top of the file. So that's a quick way to do it. I would also recommend, if you really want to, you can just select all of your markups, and you can do a nice right click on top of them, and you can copy. Whoops. Looks like some markups don't want to be copied. Why not? Why not? Let's try to select them again. Let me just select these right here. Now, can I copy these? No, it doesn't want me to copy them, guys. Man, Bluebeam Review is being really tricky today. Let me just try and copy these markups that I created. I know these are safe, right? Huh, look at that. I can't copy. That's okay. Who needs to copy, right, guys? I can copy one thing at a time. I should be able to copy more than one thing, right, guys? Yeah, there you go. Anyway, sometimes little bugs like this happen. So this is quite interesting. Perhaps it has to do with this sequence. Yep, it is. So sequences, that's something cool that I want to show you guys. Sequences cannot really be copied because a sequence is in order. So that's what's happening. These sequences are ruining everything. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to select everything but those sequences right there. And I'm going to right click on top of my markup. And now I can copy. There we go. And let's say I go to another page. I'm going to go to this second page that I have. It's basically the same floor plan, except a couple things are a little bit different. It doesn't have any markups. And now I can go to edit, and I have two options. I could paste, or I can paste in place. So when I paste in place, all my markups are exactly where they were in the last sheet. And that's quite nice. So let's go back to the first sheet. And this is a great excuse to look at sequences. Let me show you guys how these work. I'm going to go back to my tool chest. I'm actually glad that I made that mistake. We're all learning something today, right, guys? So I can click on this sequence right here. It wasn't always a sequence. It was just a typewriter tool. And this one was also just a typewriter, and I made some modifications to it. And in my tool chest, I turned them into sequences. So if you right click on any of your tools in the tool chest, you can mouse over sequence, and you can basically define it. So when you click on define, now you have a lot of options. Your sequence can be set into a certain style. So it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, Roman numerals, uppercase and lowercase, all kinds of options. Then you can set prefixes and suffixes. In this case, these two sequences, I've designated them as column designations. So I want to put C before the number itself. Let's say that I wanted to do it the opposite way. So if I wanted to do 1A, 2A, 3A, then I could put the suffix of A. I can keep this prefix empty, and then I can set it up like that if I wanted to. I can also start in different ways, and I can have different increments. So I can start at the number 1 or the letter A if I wanted to, and I can change the increment from 1 to anything that I want, for example. So I don't have to go up in order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It could be 2, 4, 6, 8, for example. And the sequence will reset per document. So when I change to different documents, it's not going to continue that. And look at how smart this is. Renumber when markups are deleted. This is awesome. So let me show you how that works. So do I want to rebuild the sequences in the active document? No, I think everything is fine. I don't need to do that. So now I've already placed C1 onto the sheet, and you can see that C2 is ready to go. So if I click on C2, now I can simply place it, and look at that. Because I have my reuse tools button on, I can just continue to make sequences constantly, over and over again. Now, what if I delete C4? And there it is. Now all of these have changed. And if I delete C5, that means 6 and 7 have become 6 and 5. Amazing. Really, really cool stuff. So this is how we're automatically renumbering our columns if we delete one. We don't have to go and make sure that if we delete one in the middle, that all the others after it are perfect. If I delete this C2, now this is the new C2 because it was made second. So Review remembers the order that you make these sequences. So they're pretty cool. And I basically did the same thing for this one right here. Basically, it's another C1, C2, just a little bit bigger, and it has that nice circle around it. So I aesthetically like this one too. And there you go. That's how sequences work. So you can turn a lot references if you needed to. All right, so let's go back to our markups list because I still haven't shown you guys those custom columns and time is running out. We only have about 4, maybe 9 minutes until questions. So I've got to speed it up, guys. So we can access our custom columns by going to the markups list dropdown, columns, manage columns, and we can go to custom columns. So I've made all of these columns for certain purposes. Responsibility is pretty cool. If I click on it and click on modify, you can see that I have set certain people to be responsible and certain people have certain subjects. So I'm going to select myself, click on modify, and here my item name is my name with my initial for my last name. My subject is set to admin. I can set that to anything I want, but on purpose, I'm going to be using admin. And then if I wanted to, I can assign numeric values to my name. I don't want to do that because my name is just my name. And my name is going to be the default one. So when I make new markups, they'll automatically have my item name and the same subject associated with them. So that's the default one. Baron, my colleague, is also using the same subject, but he's not the default and he has a different item name. So let's keep that in mind, and let's keep in mind the 3 people that I have here that are users. So we're going to go back out. Let's click on one of my markups right here, and let's look and see what happens. So in the properties area, we have different subjects for different markups. So this subject is set to steel. That's good. Let's look at the callout template one. This one, let's scroll all the way up so we can see, is set to admin, and the author is myself. Perfect. So because the subject for this callout template is set to admin, if I scroll down and if I go to responsibility, I can now choose between myself and Baron. I don't have to worry about the other people, the other 3 people that are set to a different subject because they're not set to admin, they're users. Now let's select a markup that has a different subject associated with it. So this one has the user subject. So when I scroll down to responsibility, let me make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Now we can see that I can choose between Alan, Jimmy, and Raquel. And so that's how subject allows us to control who is responsible for what, and then you can actually choose different options based on how many options have the same subject. So Alan, Jimmy, and Raquel, all 3 of them are users, and that's how that works. Now let's look at some more interesting columns. We're going to go back to the markups list, columns, manage columns, custom columns, and now we have 3 columns that work hand in hand together. Material is the first important one, so let's click on that and modify it. Let's look and see how it works. It's a choice column. We have different kinds of columns that we can make. Columns with formulas are quite handy, and I'll show you how those work soon. And I've made 3 materials here. I've also set their subject to be something quite different. Instead of just having a regular subject, like I could make the item the same as the subject if I wanted to, I decided to have them all associated with the same location on my drawing. So they're all associated with Office 223. And they're all a little bit different. So I've selected concrete. Let's click on modify. Here we can see that concrete has its own item name, the subject. I did give it a numeric value because I want every square foot of concrete to equal a certain amount of dollars or a certain amount of numbers in general. So 1 concrete, essentially, or 1 square foot of concrete equals 3. Now, this is just 3 in general. I'm going to be showing you guys how I set them to be equal to $3 instead of just the number 3. Steel is very similar. It's assigned a numeric value of 4, and Carrara marble is 5. Now, the materials are ready, so how do they work with cost analysis? Let's look at floor area first. We're going to click on that, click on modify, and here we can see that this is a formula kind of column, and the expression is very simple. The material times the area. Now, how did I get these variables? Well, if I was to now space and then put a multiplication symbol, and then if I started typing, now my variables appear. So I didn't have to do length times width times material. Instead, area is already available, so I use that one. And if I wanted to, I could also do length and height, and width is down here. And then there's depth as well for volume. So many different variables that you can use to make very complex formulas if you want to. And so this is how this one works. By the way, look at this. If you guys remember trigonometry and calculus, you can use cosine and all these different kinds of functions. So anyway, let's leave that as it is. Cancel on that. Oh yeah, before I leave off, I changed the format to currency. The decimal places are set to 2, so that mimics basically dollars. And of course, the currency symbol is dollars. I could change it to many different kinds of international currency symbols if I wanted to. Including totals is very important, so I checked that on. Let me show you guys how cost analysis wall area works, and then I'll show you guys these markups in use. Wall area is very simple. It looks like wall area is its own variable. Let me show you that one right here. So I actually scrolled down and I found wall area right here. I was going to basically do height times length, which is essentially the wall area, but I didn't need to. The wall area is actually a thing that's been calculated in the past, and review has a variable for it, so I'm very lucky. And there you go, similar properties, and let's use these markups now. I'm going to select one that already has the right information. The subject for this one is steel, so if I scroll down into properties, I can see that I can already choose a material for it. Whoops, looks like the material isn't popping up for some reason. Oh, I wonder why that's happening. Perhaps it has to do with the Office 223 subject. So let's change it to Office 223. Excellent. And now, when I go to material, oops, did that change? Let me make sure. Office 223 and material. That's odd. It's not changing. How strange. Let me deselect it and, oh, there it is. Huh, good. Now I can change it. Sometimes you have to deselect a markup and then it'll update its subject at the top. Good. Now I can choose between the other materials as well, which is perfect. So if we change it to concrete, we can see that 269 square feet of concrete roughly equals $807.59. If I change it from concrete to steel, now the same area costs $1,076, and Carrara marble is multiplying by 5, so $1,345.99. And that's basically how you can change the material and get a different cost analysis. This also works for the wall area as well. Let me show you how the wall area works. It's really, really cool. So I've made a length measurement, and this length measurement is ready to go. The subject is Office 223. So when I scroll down, I can choose between my materials. Obviously, I don't think that I'll be choosing between Carrara marble, but concrete is pretty typical for a wall. And so the wall area is ready. And as a result, if I scroll all the way to the right, this wall, which is basically 9 foot 2¼ inch long, and I've given it a depth. How I did that was I went to my measurement panel right here, and I made sure that its depth is set to 10 feet. So this wall is essentially 10 feet tall. So as a result, it will cost $275.59 to fill up this entire wall that is 9 foot 2¼ inches long with concrete. And that's basically how you can perform quantity takeoffs, cost analysis, and all kinds of important information with your markups list down here. Now, I know that we are running a little short on time, and I want to make sure we're ready for questions. I'm going to show you guys the last thing, and that is to make summary reports, and then we are done. So to make a summary report, we can click on the summary button right here. It looks like a little clipboard. We can make Excel ones. So we can make a simple CSV one, a fancy XML one. Let's make a PDF one, because I want to show you guys the hyperlinked summary reports. Let's make sure that everything is set. So under filter, everything is ready. Columns, we can choose which columns we want to export. Doesn't have to be everything. And let's click on append and hyperlink to current PDF. This is the key, and we're going to click on OK. Now it's going to find all the different markups that I have. Looks like I have about 91 of them, and it's going to generate them. Each markup is going to have an image next to it. And because I am now appending and hyperlinking to hyperlinks summary reports, now each markup's image is going to be a clickable button. So the report is nearly ready. Should be opening right after it's done. There we go. Let's go into our thumbnails, because the report actually makes itself in the rest of our PDF set. So I had 6 pages. Now I have 22. That's a lot of markups. So let's go into a random page of the report. Let's look at, let's see, something that I don't really know where it is. Oh, this is a good example. Where is this markup where Office 223 is? Well, as you can see, when I mouse over it, my mouse is changing to the pointer icon. All I have to do is click on it. It takes me to the page and it zooms in on the area. Perfect. Now I know where that is. Let's do one more, and then we'll go into questions. So let's go. Oh, this is a great sheet. Where are all of these offices? I really don't remember. Oh yeah, there's Office 227. I just had to click on it in my markups list, and now I've zoomed in on the area, and it's taking me to page 1. Office 227 is right here. Awesome. And this is how we can make hyperlinked summary reports. The hyperlinked pages need to stay in the PDF set, because they're linking to pages within the set. That's why they're created in the set themselves. So it's quite handy. All right, and I believe that we've gone over nearly everything. Let me show you guys quickly about flattening. It's very, very simple. All you have to do with a markup to flatten it is you click on it once, you can right click and you can flatten. Very simple. But if you do that, you'll never be able to undo the flatten. You can only delete the markup. Now, instead, if we go to the document dropdown and we click on flatten, now we have this fancy thing called the flatten dialog. So we can flatten certain categories of markups. You can select markups ahead of time, and then you can flatten the currently selected markups if you wanted to. And if you allow markup recovery, aka unflatten, then you can click on the unflatten button for your document and unflatten any markups that you need to unflatten. So there's always the option there. And that is it, ladies and gents. I believe that we've gone over everything. So without further ado, let's go into some questions.
All right. Thank you so much for a great presentation, Ari. That was very interesting. I have, let's see, guys, send your questions now or never. Okay, so one of them is about callouts. Is there a way to add another leader on another side? Same questions from last week, just checking in.
Yes, I remember. I have not gotten a response yet on that one. I need to actually, I need to contact one of our partners and get info on that. But just to show you guys from last week, so far from what we've determined, it doesn't seem to be possible. You can only make a second leader popping out of the same vertice. So if I make a call out here, data can be put there. And now if I right click on it, I can add a leader. The problem is that the leaders has to start from this shoulder. So even if I move the shoulder here, it moves both of my arrows. So this is still a bit of an issue. It seems like there might be something missing. Maybe there's something that I don't know, but I'll be contacting Bluebeam and I'll get back to you. If we can record which of our clients sent us that question, I'll follow up with you guys very soon. Absolutely. It's very important that we get to the bottom of that.
Okay, thank you, Ari. Yeah, we need to follow up with him. Another question, is there a way to match properties of a markup? Assume I have a previously modified markup and now I need to create another one to match. Can I match properties of the previous markup to the new one?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked. So I'm going to be making another text box. I'm just going to make a generic one with data. So obviously I don't like this one. I want it to be a little different. And I have my text box template right here, and I love the properties on that one. So all I have to do is select the text box template. Now I can go up here and I can click on Format Painter. If you don't see it here, it should be under Edit. There it is, Format Painter right here. So once I click on that, then I just have to click on another markup, and you can see that the paint icon goes over it. So if it's a markup that is similar to that one, then you can format paint it. Now, this is a typewriter and this is a text box, but look at this. I can actually format paint the typewriter itself. I can also do it for callouts, for example. So yes, you have basically a format painter very similar to other programs like Word, for example.
All right.
Absolutely.
That's a very interesting tips and tricks, huh? Okay, let's see, questions, more questions. Guys, keep bringing them in. All right, so the next one is there a way that you can unflatten or delete a markup that has been flattened without markup recovery?
Oh yes, good question. So you cannot unflatten it, but let me show you what happens. So this one right here, let me auto size it, there we go. I'm going to right click and I'm going to flatten it. Now, while my document is open, I can always go to edit and undo and I can get rid of it. But let's say that I save my document and it's flattened like this. Now, because I flatten it like that, I can't undo the flatten. The only way would be if I went to document and flatten and I allowed markup recovery, but I didn't do that this time. So the only way to really get rid of this is to go to the edit dropdown, PDF content, and you can either cut or erase it. So now, because I flattened it, it's become content. If it was just a markup, it would be a markup, excuse me. So I can now click on the erase content tool. I can make a box around it and it's gone. Now this won't work for markups, but it works for any other line. So if I wanted to erase this grid line, for example, it's gone as well. So that's how you can use erase content to get rid of flattened markups that are not flattened through the flatten dialog.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see next one. Can we turn images into markups?
Yeah, I actually didn't show you guys, but an image is a markup. You can actually insert images into review by going to the tools dropdown, markup. You can mouse over image and you can insert images from files, cameras connected to your PC or your device, scanners, etc. So I'm going to insert an image from a file. Let's see if I can find a good one. I know exactly which one I want. I think it'll be here, and there it is, my typical wall detail. You might have already seen it on the upper right side of my screen. I'm going to make a brand new one. A couple of ways to insert images is if you click once, the image comes out at whatever size it used to be. So this one's rather big. So I don't want it to be that big. I'm going to get rid of it, and let's do that again. Instead, I don't want to click once. I'm going to click and hold, and I can resize it on the fly, just like that. And now my wall area is ready to go, and I can move it. If you see in properties, it is now, we now have image properties, and this image is essentially a markup. We can even give it a border color, so I can change its border from nothing to orange. Let me make that a little bit bigger so we can see it. There we go. And so on and so forth. So this is basically a markup, and what's really cool is if you right click on top of this and you add it to your tool chest, and there it is. And so I can basically reuse this image as a markup over and over and over again, and that's it. Now, images can only be used in one way. There's no properties in drawing mode. It's just drawing mode. I could essentially, with the same border, I can actually double click and go into properties mode, and I can make a brand new image like this. So actually, I take that back. There is a properties mode for images. Very interesting. And so there you go. That's how you can use images, and you can reuse them over and over again, especially if you have to use the same image in different sizes. So good question.
Yeah, good question. All right, I think that covers all the questions that I have so far. Before I let you guys know, we need, all of us would like you to know the following. Our blog has been live for a while. It has an interesting content. You have brief presentations similar to this webinar today there. You can check it out at that link on the screen. As we said at the beginning, we do have review training. So if you have any questions about it, contact us for that information. Our upcoming webinar of this webinar series we're doing in July every Tuesdays with DDS-CAD is next Tuesday. And it is the 21st of July at 2 p.m. And the content of that webinar will be measurements, sketch-to-scale tools, and viewports. So again, measurements, sketch-to-scale tools, and viewports. So that would be viewports. So that would be interesting content. So we hope that we can see you there. Tell all your Bluebeamers around your work area or anybody you know. They are free to participate. And without any more delay, thank you, Ari, for a great presentation. Thank you, guys, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Have a great, fantastic day.
Thanks, Raquel. See you all next week.